Hello, welcome. I'm Jim Kerlin, and this is another episode of How It's Done. Today's episode is going to be about business to business inside sales, and we have a phenomenal guest today to do that. First, let me introduce my co-host, Islam Gouda. Islam.
Hi, Jim. I'm honored and privileged to be part of the series. And I thank you for inviting Michelle, one of the greatest business leaders anybody can find in the industry, with like many years of experience, sales, business development, you name it. So basically, today we are going to interview her and ask her about her insights and some of the key strategies in sales and business development. So I give the mic to Michelle to introduce herself.
Absolutely, Islam. Thank you. And thank you, Jim, for inviting me to be part of this How It's Done the video series. It's very exciting, and I'm thrilled to be one of your guests. Again, my name is Michelle Page. My company is Sales Tracers, started in 2009 to provide consulting and fractional business development services for companies who are looking to either start, expand, form their inside sales and business development teams and reach aggressive revenue goals. So whatever your needs may be, whatever your challenges may be, we will audit, analyze, provide recommendations, and then execute.
Well, I want to quickly add, I've known Michelle for nearly 20 years, and we work side by side in the industry. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, she knows her stuff and she knows how to deliver training for those that are looking for it. So, with
Thank you.
that, Islam, let me throw it back to you to ask the first question.
Yeah, sure, Jim. Thank you very much. And thank you, Michelle. Like, it's really interesting to understand more about sales. Much more interesting to know how sales have changed over the 3 decades which you have been in the industry. Like, how do you think the sales interface and the interaction with the companies have changed over this period of time?
That is a great question. When I first started, there was a little confusion about the difference between inside sales and outside sales. Who did what? What was the relationship between the two? Oftentimes it was very disjointed. The inside team basically fed leads, that appointments to the outside team. It was not a true partnership. There was not a shared goal. There was really no communication. The inside team did not necessarily receive the same training. They didn't understand the same value, the same message. In other cases, it may be the exact opposite. And the AE did everything, which is really unfortunate because the business development side and the account executive side, two completely different jobs, two completely different skill sets. So if you're hiring for one, you're shortchanging yourself on the other. And that AE is also being shortchanged on their potential. So it really pays to separate the two. And that's one of the most rewarding challenges that I've seen in the past 30 years. The culture's also changed from a volume game, smile and dial, call as many people as you can. You can't do that anymore. It's hyper personalized. You've got to know who you're calling, not only the company and the industry, but the personas as well. You need to have the right title. You need to know something about the company, the industry, and the person you're calling. What are their challenges? What do they want to accomplish? What are they looking for? It's not what you have to sell. It's what do they need? There's also a distributed workforce now, not only within your company, but also your prospects company. How do you reach them? They're either working from home or not answering the phone. We hear that a lot now. So you have to have good contact information for them. Cell phones, email, social media. You didn't have to worry about that in the 90s.
Before I hand it over to Jim for the second question, I'd like to have a follow-up question about that. what are you looking for into a marketing leader who's working in the organization and that you'd like him or her to contribute to your sales pipeline and the return on investment?
That is something that organizations really need to look at and make a decision before they fill out those roles and fill out those teams. Sales and marketing have the same end goal, but how they go about doing it, different tactics. So they need to understand the common message and the common goal. If marketing is pitching one message in demand generation, but sales is using a different message in lead generation, both of them are not getting results they need. So it needs to be a cohesive message, cohesive goals. And when KPIs are established, and KPIs are so important, there needs to be organizational KPIs. Marketing KPIs need to feed that. Sales KPIs need to feed that. And they need to agree with each other. Sales doesn't want unqualified marketing email opens. And marketing doesn't want sales results that don't support what they've generated. So it's very much a codependent, interdependent relationship. And if you're not working together, essentially you're working against each other. And that's not good for the organization.
Well, Michelle, what I wanted to ask about was client relationship management software. We know that tracking is needed
Yes.
for the inside sales team, but tell me, what are the pros and cons of using a CRM, client relationship management software tool? And what would you say are the best criteria when you're looking to use one, implement one, especially for those that have never done it before?
I think a CRM is one of the first investments an organization needs to make. And it needs to be something that's appropriate to your organization in terms of where you are today and where you expect to scale in the next few years. It doesn't make sense to buy a Rolls Royce if you're just getting your learner's permit. First of all, you probably have other areas in your business where you need to invest. So what checks all your boxes today will allow you to scale until you have that point that you need to go further in your tech stack, for further in your sales productivity tools. Some of those boxes that you need to check is make sure that it's something that's going to fit all functions of the organization that need to use it. There are so many CRMs out there today. Everybody knows Salesforce, HubSpot, but there's also a lot of smaller focused CRMs that can fit solopreneurs, small businesses, even small to medium businesses that don't really want to allocate a huge budget at this time. But what I mean by having to fit all functions of the organization, there needs to be one source of truth. It doesn't work to have one CRM for your business development team, one CRM for your account executives, one CRM for your support team. It needs to be one source of truth. Everybody uses it, and it has to have the appropriate file format or field format rather, that if inside sales needs to track something and business development needs to be able to turn over that data to the AE, it needs to be customized or built so that that field is included. If they have to put all of this information in the notes, you can't track it. What you can't track, you can't measure. And if there's not a field that they have to fill out, they're not going to put it in there. So get a CRM that's going to fit your needs today and scale with you at least for the next couple of years. But you also have to make sure that you require its usage and inspect its usage. We know the term garbage in, garbage out. If they're not using it, does you no good. If they're using it but putting in garbage, does you no good. Actually, it hurts you.
Well, that's a great answer, Michelle. And I wanted to add one thing to that. And what you were talking about, the garbage in and the garbage out part. Because if, for example, somebody's a captive prisoner and they really don't want to be doing this, if you're not enforcing that from the back end, if, for example, that employee leaves or is out sick, somebody can't be recreating where you're at with
Yeah.
that particular prospect that's needing to move it on along in the process. The other thing I like about using the CRM is it forces everybody to agree on the definition of what's a qualified lead.
Mhm.
At a certain point, it moves from a lead into a qualified prospect, which is a very important definition. So thank you so much. What a great answer. Ask you to lead with the next question.
Just want to add something to this also, Jim. Like the best employee, in my opinion, is measured by the best handovers they make. So you need to provide some sort of context and some sort of understanding for whoever is going to succeed to be able to function and to be able to work. And I would like to ask you the third question, Michelle, and basically it's about productivity tools in sales. So we all know that there are things that are nice to have and things that are critical and crucial and key to have. So can you provide us a little bit of insight about how an organization determines between a critical and a last thing to have?
Absolutely. A lot of that is dependent on the organization, the size of the team, the location of the team, remote as in work from home, if it's different offices that they're in. Key, first and foremost, is a great group communication tool. It's not a matter of the leader being able to communicate with each individual. They need to be able to collaborate within the team as a group. That's how you share knowledge. That's how you ask a quick question. And therefore, if you post a group question, it's not just that person that posts that gets an answer. Everyone gets that answer. Even if they didn't have the question, they're getting the answer. They're learning. You're training. You can share successes. You can share challenges. You can just give someone more support. That group communication tool is critical. The next investment I would make is a fantastic online data source. When you buy a list and it's just the stagnant list, things are outdated as soon as you download them. The minute you download them, somebody's changed jobs, a phone number is changed, an email is changed, there's a promotion. It's not to say it's not good data. It's just not as accurate as you can get it. Also, you don't get any supplemental information. You don't get any enhanced data. If you decide that your target market has changed a little bit or you want a different persona, you have to buy another list. The great thing about all the fantastic online data sources right now, first of all, prices have come way down, way down. And they also have additional data that you're not going to get with a lot of purchase lists, such as what tech stack are they using? What are their buying signals? When somebody moves to a different company, you'll get signals for that if you use that type of search tool. So the great lead source is the next best thing. If you don't have good data, doesn't matter who's calling, doesn't matter what you say. You're talking
Sure.
wrong.
It's a brilliant answer. And Jim, would you like to ask the next question?
Well, I kind of want to follow up on that right there because I know the phone and the communication tool that's used is real important in terms of being able to do things like whisper mode when you've got a new employee, for example, that you put in a seat and you need to be able to be incognito mode, if you will, to where you can coach that person as they're in a live call in a live situation. You want to have a way for those calls to get recorded and kept for training purposes, etc. And I want to give a shout out to a partner of mine, Aircall is the
Mhm.
name of the company. They're based out of New York, but the partnership manager there, Bianca Egas, is down in Miami. Know her real well. If you're a company and you need things like you've got, you're doing manual data entry, for example, or you need more connectivity to different areas. You need better integration of the information that's going in there. And maybe the voice over IP solution you're using right now doesn't have those kind of capabilities in it. You want real-time metrics, for example, where you can see who's doing the best performance right now today. Those are the types of feedback. And in terms of pricing, they're not going to be the right fit for this mega company that's already got a very efficient, very large, expensive solution already in place. But for those, I'll call it the Goldilocks zone, for those companies that don't have what they like, or they've went with a lower price solution to start with and they've just outgrown it, please get with me. I'd like to give you an introduction to AirCall. So,
Jim, what I like most about that, and probably the next step in investment for productivity tools, is that monitoring piece. That is so critical to developing being able to share live feedback and specific feedback on what you heard, either live during the call or being able to hear and coach specifics. Not only does that help your individual reps get better, but it makes them know that you're invested in them. So that monitoring tool, that coaching tool, fantastic investment. It will pay off in spades.
well, the next thing I'd like to ask you about is simply this. You were talking about there's a difference in skill sets between a development rep, the sales development rep, and the account executives, for example, whether you're talking inside or outside sales. I know this is a pet peeve of yours because I know you've had countless conversations with CEOs about how they think that they're hiring for one position when in fact the skill sets and the attributes that they need for those two different individuals are different. Please speak to
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. So when you're looking at an SDR or a BDR, you're really looking for someone who's a hunter. They have that determined fierceness that's going to make them want to go out and find that ICP, ideal customer profile, that is going to be a great candidate to put into that pipeline. Their goal, their purpose for being, is to fill that pipeline. So it's a matter of both quantity and quality. They need to have a thick skin. They need to be very driven to be on that phone. And cold calling is not for everyone. It's something they really need to enjoy doing. And believe it or not, there are people out there that do. I know if you're not one of those people, you don't believe it, but there are. They need to definitely be empathetic and have great listening skills. And you really have to look at those soft skills. For a BDR, soft skills always trump word skills. You can train someone your industry. You can train someone your product. You can train someone your technology. It's very difficult to train them on empathy. You can coach them to be better. It's very hard to train someone how to be empathetic. An AE, they usually will have stronger or more inherent hard skills. They need to go a little bit deeper in conversations with prospects to do more of the hard selling, the closing. And they're not going to be satisfied sitting at a desk or at a phone. They're usually a little bit more energetic, more hyper, because they want to go in there and close it. They have that tendency to go deeper, and a SDR will go deep and wide. So it's just a very different type of personality where you have to look at soft skills, hard skills, and say, okay, what can I coach? What do I train? And where does this person best fit?
Well, it's a great answer. And I would like to have a follow-up question on that particularly. So, we're reading somebody's resume, do you think we'll be doing them injustice if we just like evaluate them based on their experiences? Like, do you think, for example, if clearing based on personality per se, personality type, that would be more convenient? Or it's a mixture between both personality and experience? How would you describe the best sales rep or the best SDR?
It's very hard to judge personality from a resume. But if you are looking for like an entry level SDR and you're looking, maybe your product or industry is a high human touch, healthcare, or something of that nature. And you see that that person, their non SDR experience, of course, this is an entry level position, is in fields where it required them to have more patience, more empathy, more human interaction. I would say, yeah, let's go ahead and interview them, see if we can discuss it further. If it's somebody that shows more analytical skills, or in the keywords or their description of the technology they've used indicates that they have that inquisitive mind, that they ask a lot of questions, or if they have the different course work and certifications that they've taken, that kind of gives you some insight into their thought processes. If that's appropriate to the work that you have that you need to fill, I would take that insight. Just forcing a resume through an ATS and not looking at it, I think it really does a disservice to a lot of people that have the qualifications, but it doesn't fit that electronic screening.
Which brings me to my fifth and last question for this interview. It's about onboarding and training. So we see that there are many great sales reps or SDRs that are being hired or headhunted from different kind of industries. But uh, it's the matter of onboarding and training that really determines the success in their job. So how would you describe the best or the ultimate onboarding and training, continuous training experience that an SDR or a sales rep that they can have?
Well, there's a few different factors. The goal of training is also retention. So you want to set them up for success from the beginning, make them feel welcomed, comfortable, and engaged. I would have a training curriculum that is not just the first 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 90 days, but an ongoing, the first 120 days, the first year. And maybe it's just once a month after the initial onboarding. Maybe it's some self study after that point. But there has to be an official curriculum where it keeps them engaged and keeps them learning. I also am a big fan of mixing up learning styles.
Mm.
It's very boring to go into a classroom 40 hours a week for 2 weeks and be expected to retain anything you've learned. So mix it up a little bit classroom style, a little bit round table, a little bit of hands on, side by side monitoring, role playing, maybe some video training. There's so many different ways that you can train. If it's a smaller group, then you can, if you have the flexibility, you can say, how do you best learn Islam? Are
Mhm.
you a hear it, see it, do it kind of person? Is that how you best learn?
Yeah, I mean, the learning process is different from people to people. And for me personally, I'd like to experience and have an experiential kind of learning. What about you, Jim? How's your experience into the learning and like development and training process?
I think part of what you've got to do is, to Michelle's point, understand that different people learn different ways. Some people are extensive note takers, even if they don't look at them again. The fact that they wrote it down imprints it in their mind. It helps them. Others are auditory. They learn by hearing. Others are kinesthetic touch. They need to actually do it. I think there's some statistics somewhere that say if you stick with that boring lecture style that Michelle started off talking about, they're going to remember 15%, and maybe some of that's not going to be the important stuff that they needed to remember. It might be very minor stuff. The best way, in my opinion, is to get them doing it, rehearsing it, take it in very small bites, very small pieces, if you will, just this one little technique, just this one concept, and have them rehearse. I don't like the word role play. Rehearse it, practice it. And when they do that, they're probably going to remember about 85% of it. The other thing I want to kind of push back even further than the onboarding experience, I feel it's important for companies to use assessments. Sometimes that looks like a day in the life of, it might be a partial 2-hour ride along. If it's a field rep, even if it's an inside sales position, they can sit side by side and ask questions. If you can't do that legally and you have to wait until after they're hired to do that, I would say it's very, very important that you use some type of assessment that looks at the job description attributes, the bona fide, qualified role pieces there, and that it measures that. Now, there are several ones that do that. I've used the Predictive Index, I think is a great company to use for that. Another one is the Divine Group. I think those are very successful. I even like the DISC when you look at, are you going to have a mixture of different personality styles on a team? And the specific one that I like is from a company called Take Flight Learning. And you can find them on LinkedIn, for example, or just at their website. But they make it sticky. They make it memorable because they use 4 birds. They use eagles, parrots, doves, and owls to talk about those 4 personality types. And it's so easy to get. It's intuitive. You remember it, and it's fun when you're learning it. So I would add that one piece about using the assessments to get the right person in the right seat on the bus. And let's also ask Michelle if she will close us out by sharing
Of
her
course.
contact points. How can people reach you? I'm sure there's people interested in interacting with you, learning more about how you can help them in their business. Please share those contact points with them now.
I'd be happy to. So my name again is Michelle Page. My company is Sales Chasers, one word. My website is saleschasers.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn. And that is both under Michelle Cockle Page and Sales Chasers, or my email, michelle@saleschasers.com.